Christine, remember when you were a kid and you thought that your career was going to be this like perfect straight line trajectory?
Oh my, yes. That is not at all what happened. It ended up being way more of a squiggle than I could have ever imagined. And I am so happy that I embraced all of the squiggles along the way. Hello, and welcome back to Embrace the Squiggle, where we are bringing you a very special part 2 with Lauretta Rupert. So welcome back, Lauretta, and welcome back, Colleen. Happy Monday to you both.
Yes.
Thank you.
So excited.
I know, and it feels so just fitting to continue the conversation as quickly as we could, because Lauretta's story, we didn't finish telling it in the first episode. So
No.
we're going to jump right in because, Lauretta, you left your teaching position in the middle of the year, and then my understanding is you took some time off and you went to Europe, and we would love to hear you tell the story about your time on the Camino.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, leaving in the middle of the school year was definitely the biggest heartbreak I've ever gone through, but in the most like healing way possible. And I actually did have a job lined up. So I did kind of jump right into the job, but the job was very gracious and knew that I was going to be doing the Camino and were completely supportive of it. There was no questions. And already like that tone of just was already such a different experience than I had when teaching. Usually with teaching, they're so selective with your PTO is not really a thing when you teach. You have to schedule your doctor's appointments during certain times. So the fact that they knew I was going to do this was so important to me. So in doing the Camino is always something that was on my bucket list, something I had many friends in college do, and just kind of in different spaces of life. And it was really special. I got to do it with my dad. So that was really awesome that we got to spend 3 weeks together, which is something we haven't done since ever.
Wow.
Lauretta, can you actually talk about what the Camino is? Because I guarantee there's lots of people listening. I don't know that I knew what it was until I saw your posts and started to look into it, right? Like it's not something that I was familiar with. So
yeah, so the Camino is, I'm probably not going to do it justice in giving it its proper history lesson, but I can tell you that there are so many different routes all over Europe, but specifically in Spain, France, Portugal. I mean, sometimes there's routes in England, but it dates back hundreds of years with St. James. His relic basically is in Santiago de Compostela. My Spanish is also okay. So the whole point is that it really was a spiritual and religious pilgrimage, but I think it's really transformed into being exactly what I said, spiritual. And I think people just take it for many different reasons. I always a stigma is you don't necessarily have to be religious to do the Camino. A beautiful saying that was always said to me is that the Camino comes into your life when you need it. And it might be something on your bucket list, but you won't be able to do it until it's that time in your life that you need it, which was something for me. So in doing the Camino, you basically start in a city. I started in Porto, Portugal, and you walk. It is as simple as it seems. You walk for 175 miles, not within a day, clearly, but within a span of 2 weeks, 1 week. It really just depends. In order to complete a Camino, you have to have walked 100 kilometers minimum. So being from the States, we love doing things in miles. So I am not the best at figuring out what the miles to kilometer ratio is. But you carry a backpack, and the key is simplicity. You have your clothes for walking in and your clothes to hang out in. They tell you to not really bring any technology except like your phone and just kind of the basics with that stuff. But it really is a journey of really turning inward, and you meet people from all over the world. You discover things about yourself, both with how you tolerate pain, because blisters are 100% inevitable when you're walking the Camino, heat. There's definitely discomforts, but it's the idea of rather engaging with your discomforts, kind of offering them up. And I think people walk the Camino for so many different reasons. They're lost in life. They don't know where to go next. Maybe they've lost someone. Very common that you walk the Camino in memory of someone. And then when you get to Santiago, and you enter the square, you go to the Pilgrim Center, and you can get a certificate that says you completed it, but it's also very special that you can put someone's name, like you completed it for someone that's passed away in your life, a special someone, in honor of them. So yeah, I probably a little bit of jarble with my explanation of the Camino. There's so much to say, but again, I know I probably did not do it justice. I apologize to an avid Caminoer. There's people that do a Camino every single year. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's a lot,
Yeah.
right? And like, what was it about it that made, like, had you wanted to do this for a while? Was this like came to you later in life, or is this something you thought of doing for a while and then kind of got it on the schedule kind of
Yeah,
moment?
again, I'd had friends do it, and it was something I always found intriguing, and it definitely was something on my bucket list. But the thing is that when you're teaching, you really can only travel during the most prime travel times. So everyone else
Mhm.
is traveling when you want to travel. And I think also just having been a teacher the summers, I always was working another job, whether I was serving or bartending, working in the restaurant industry. So I really wanted to do this, but I kind of had to just be smart financially, and timing wise. So I had put it on. I love making vision boards. That is like one of my favorite things to do. So I had put it on my vision board, the little seashell, which is a symbolism for the Camino. And had been thinking about it even before I had gotten my new job. But when I had gotten my new job, I just kind of in my heart, it had confirmed like, okay, like I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask my dad, do you want to go? And we're going to book the flights. And I love making itineraries and a day by day breakdown because that's just the inner teacher in me. But that's kind of the funny thing about the Camino is they tell you you can plan all you want, but the Camino is going to direct you the way that you're meant to go.
Yeah.
So, and I definitely had times where I'd had cities mapped out, and that was not the city we ended up in walking wise. Um, so yeah, and that's when I decided, so when I quit teaching in March, that's when I decided to kind of get the ball rolling with getting this planned. And I had already told my company, and I was like, I'm going to do this at this time. Hadn't bought the flights or anything. I just was like, I'm going to do it. So and they were on board. So I had no option, that I was going to do it. And yeah, and I think also it was a perfect timing because leaving teaching, teaching is such a core part of your identity when you're a teacher. People see you and they're like, oh, you're a teacher. And then they really don't want to know anything else about your life. They're like, you're a teacher? Oh, that's great. You must be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, patient, kind, a planner. But then they don't want to know like my hobbies or what I like to do for fun. And that was
Yeah.
something that really scared me with leaving teaching is like, who am I? Who am I when I'm not a teacher? Like this has been my identity for 11 years. And I started kind of seeing things happen in the sense of, oh, like this is why I'm going on the Camino. I got to figure, who am I without teaching? And another thing is that I moved home for this job and I had felt a stir in my heart that I don't I love being from Maryland. I love having grown up here. I just don't necessarily want to live here forever. And I've lived away. And so I had kind of that, gnawing at me of like, where do I want to live? Who am I without teaching? Like, what do I want my 5 and 10 year plan to be? Like, I had a whole different route a few months ago. And now that's like completely changed. And I think that was really what I was looking forward to on the Camino to just trust more, like let go of that white knuckle grip we have on life because we love control. We love knowing what comes next and just having the humility to not always know what's going to come next and who
Yeah.
I
So,
am.
so what did you learn while you were walking at one with yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I could write a TED talk on it, honestly, because there's so many realizations you have. I definitely will start with the fact that I think so many times we make life more complicated than it needs to be. And I think that's a really tough
Like
pill.
every day we do.
All the time. We all do.
Like every
Right?
day.
Absolutely. And that was something on the Camino you really learn is that life does not have to be so complicated in the sense of you don't need all these materialistic things. You don't need, all these different unnecessary stresses in your life. And it's the idea of learning that idea of yes, we make things more complicated, but we also need to believe in the idea of being able to just surrender and trusting that like what will fall into place will fall into place. I always hesitate to say things happen for a reason. Having worked in schools, that's just kind of a tough thing to say, especially in tragedy. But I do believe certain things fall into alignment the way that they're supposed to. And that was something that you do on the Camino. They always say the Camino provides. So if you're really dehydrated at one point, like I was, because it was a sweltering hot day, and Portuguese didn't consider it summer, but I don't know about that. Someone just happened to have an extra water bottle that I met along the way and gave me a water bottle. Or I think one of the most emotional stories was meeting a girl from Ukraine, and we were walking along with her, and I don't know if we were at a firing range or something. There was these large explosions, and I just saw her cower and fear. And I, was like, are you okay? And she just explained to me that she has PTSD, and rightfully so. Mm-hmm. And I think even though that wasn't necessarily something provided for me, I think the Camino provided my dad and I to walk alongside this girl and just to kind of assure her that like everything would be fine. It's probably like, I think they were practicing fireworks and just providing that support for her. But again, I think it's the idea of just trusting that the things will fall into place the way they need to. And that was something that I had to learn when leaving teaching, because I had been applying to jobs for, like a year plus, and having to kind of revamp my resume, have other people I knew that had left teaching. So being able to have that reassured on the Camino that I don't need to be as stressed out as I am all the time. Like things will fall into place the way that they're supposed to. Like I just have to trust. And that's something as a religious person, like, was also a big pill I had to swallow. It's just like surrender. Like things will happen the way that they're supposed to. And I think just expanding on this simplicity, I think we live in a society where we need to have the next best thing technology wise, clothing wise. We need to go to this destination. We need to have these amount of followers, when really, that's not how it should be. Like our happiness has to start with ourselves. If we're not able to find joy in ourselves, believe in ourselves, invest in ourselves, like how is anyone else going to do that?
No,
if we can't believe in ourselves, invest in ourselves, how can I expect a whole other person to do that? And that's the same with like loving ourselves. And that was something when I was teaching, I did, enjoy the job, and I loved myself as a teacher. But when that started to shift and I did not love myself as a teacher, I did not recognize the person in the mirror, that's when I knew walking away was what I had to do. Because always I emphasize to students that you have to love yourself, because what are you going to do with a whole other person? If you can't love you, then I don't know, what are we going to do with a whole other person in the equation here? And that was something on the Camino, that it really pushes you, is to like believe in yourself, like believe in what you're doing, believe in the destination. And it was also a gift to have my dad. My dad is like my biggest cheerleader. So it was just like a bonus to, even on the days where I'm like crying, because I'm like, I thought we were walking 20 miles, ended up being 25 miles one day. That was brutal. He's just like cheering me on. He's like, it's okay. You're going to get there. Like, I promise. Like, he was the dad on the sidelines that would like run the bases with me when I played softball, and was like, you can do it. He was a big trophy guy.
How did the Camino impact your relationship with him? Like, what changed?
Yeah, I think really well. I mean, my dad and I have always been very close, and he's always been someone I admire, because he has had the weight of the world on his shoulders at many a times. He's had to deal with things with his siblings and with his, family that I would never wish upon anyone. He's lost a lot of people in his life, but yet he's one of the happiest, most cheerful, loving people you'll meet. I think he's the epitome of someone that sees the good in literally anyone. And he just always, I also admire his faith. He's gone through the deepest of valleys. I mean, as low of a valley as you can get. And he still like holds on to the light. Even when darkness surrounds him, like he will do whatever he can to find that little glimmer of light in the most like hopeless situations. And that's something that I'm constantly like pinching myself, that I'm just so lucky to have a dad like that. Cause I know that's not everyone's situation, especially in teaching. You learn so much ugliness of what these kids go through, that I just was always very grateful that I had a dad that, not only brought me stability in life, but just loved me when I couldn't love myself. And that was always something I found as an inspiration when it came to teaching, was loving these kids, because these kids are just living in a generation where it is just impossible for them to love themselves. They've got everything against them, and just trying to do what I can to chip away at that. But I think being on the Camino, it really was like, we didn't have the distraction of other family members. Yeah, we had our phones, but like, we didn't really have that great a service when you're in rural Spain and Portugal. So it really was just like him and I talking. And I think he's been super helpful with me in figuring out who I am without teaching, and like helping me because I really struggled with, that leaving teaching. It's like going through a breakup. You still love that person, and you want to figure out every way that you can stay with that person. But you know that if you stay with them, like it's not going to work out. It's going to just keep chipping away at you. And I think he was really helpful in helping me have that realization that although I've left teaching, like the lessons that I've taught kids, the way that I've loved kids, how I've helped them, like that will never go away.
No.
It won't ever go away in their hearts or in my heart.
Yeah.
And you can still be a teacher that's not teaching in a classroom, right?
Yeah.
There are so many ways that you can take that identity forward without it being a classroom teacher.
No, absolutely. And that's something I've always learned from my dad and then his mom. My grandmother was my favorite person, and she, the same way, like they were never formal. Well, my grandmother actually did teach some art classes like in her late 60s and onward, but truly like not full blown classroom teachers, but yet they're some of the most like teacher like people I've ever met, just in the sense of how they love and just want you to grow and to love to see yourself the way that they see you. That was always something I would want for my students, is I want them to see themselves as I see them. It's just like uniquely and wonderfully made, and just like really awesome and creative. And, your number of followers and your number of friends does not define who you are.
No.
Nope.
No. Adults need that message too.
Yeah. Yes. I needed to kind of preach it to myself, but that's definitely what you learn on the Camino. And then walking into the square, I think, is one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. When you finish the Camino, you walk into the square of Compostela de Santiago, and you see like hundreds of people. And the most humbling part is that I started in Porto, Portugal, and I started because I need to figure out who I am without teaching. And you see this crowd of people, and everyone that's there started in different cities, and they all started for different reasons. I know one young man was explaining in the Pilgrim Center that he was walking the Camino because he had lost his wife a few months ago. Another young man was sharing that he also was had quit school and didn't know what he wanted to do next. Another woman shared she was an addictions counselor in San Francisco and just needed to clear her head. So it's incredible to see these people from all over the world, all different backgrounds, all ages. We are all so different, but then at this like one square, we all have the same feeling of just like joy. Like that's joy in the square of just this accomplishment. I had walked 175 miles. Some people were coming from Saint Jean, France, and that's about 500 kilometers. So I had done it for about 2.5 weeks. Some people had done it for months. And it was just, you can feel the energy and the joy. And I think so much is happening in our world right now that it was so nice to kind of have a break from that. And also that feeling of, having left teaching and that heartbreak and letting my heart heal. It's like all of that just went away. And I just felt this reassurance of like, I'm okay. I can do really hard things. I just did a really hard thing. I quit teaching. I'm changing my career. Like, I can do this. Like, whatever life's going to throw at me, like, I will figure it out. And that's really what I felt in that moment. I can't recommend a Camino enough to anyone. And it doesn't matter your age either. I mean, I met two women who were best friends from Brisbane, Australia, that were 80 years old walking the Camino for the first time. And I think that's something that's a stigma when it comes to teaching, is that it's so ingrained in us. We can't do anything else but teach. And I think that that's a commonality with so many people when you get, 11 years or 10 years into a career that you can't leave, you can't do anything else. And that's just like so far from the truth.
It doesn't matter what profession it is, you can always do something different.
Always.
Even right, like even I mean, teaching's pretty linear, but even in the linear box of careers, you can always shift and pivot and retrain and do something, leverage your, I mean, we preach it every week, leverage your strengths, transferable skills, like rinse and repeat, right, Colleen? Like we're going to be rinsing and repeating for the rest of our life to get the message out there.
Well, and I think so much of it has to be, people need to get to that point where they realize that they want to do it enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that they can see it's a possibility. I think of many people that I've had calls with through the years that I've ended up not coaching are the people who get on and say, I really want to leave, insert title of any job out there, right? Teaching, accounting, I don't care what it is, right?
Yeah.
I really want to leave this. And when I start offering ideas, they just shoot everything down, right? Because they think they want to leave it, but they're not willing to do the work to make the next step.
No, that's the game-changing moment is, are you ready to lean in and do the work, or are you not?
Because as you said, Lauretta, right? Like this isn't easy. It took effort. It took research, right? It took figuring out your identity that was separate from being a teacher. And, you're still young. I mean, you're in your 30s, right? So it's not like you're like 70 and taught for 50 years or something. But even then, we find the same issue. I find the same issue often with people who are retiring.
Yeah.
Right? They retire from a career and all of a sudden sure, you take the first couple of months, you do all the things you've wanted to do. And then you turn around one day and you're like, okay, like, who am I? What do I actually want to do? How do I want to spend my time? Who do I want to be known as? And that can be really hard for folks to accept it and to figure out how to fill their time.
Mm-hmm.
And I often think this is why, like, these are the people who seem really old when they're 70 versus, I think my parents are 83. I should know that. I'm like 82 or 83. I forget right now. Right. But my parents, if you saw them, they look better than most 60-year-olds I know. Right. Because they have things that they're involved in. They have reasons to get up every day. They have a routine. They know what they want to do every day. Where if all you're doing is sitting on the couch and watching, Netflix all day, you're going to look like you're 85.
Yeah.
It's about building community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the identity thing, we've all been through it. Like Lauretta, we're, Colleen and I are sitting here, co-hosting this and hearing your story, but Colleen and I have both been through it. I've been through
personally and professionally.
Personally
right?
and professionally. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. Like I was married and went by another name at one point. And what's really interesting is that my ex-husband pushed me he was really like, when are you changing your driver's license when we got married? And I was like, dude, I've been this for like 27 years. Like I need a little bit of time to ramp up, whatever. And then, as soon as we said we were separating, I went back to my maiden name like the next day. And it was, and I can tell you, like, I can actually remember the feeling of like, oh my God, I just went back to who I actually am. Like literally within 24 hours, I was like, this is me, this is my name, and I will never change it again. Like I will never try to be somebody or something or another name in my life. And even professionally, establishing myself under my married name and then switching back to my maiden name. And then, I almost don't want to say reestablishing because that's not exactly what happened. It was just getting people used to me going by a different name. But I certainly was, and I remember in higher education, like I was so dripping and branded by the university's name that I was like, I just want to be Christine. Like, how do I be Christine again? Like, that's all I want to be. Because it was always like Christine. And then it was like, I don't even want to name it in this episode of the podcast, but my name was always followed up by the faculty that I worked for. And it was like,
I think that happens to a lot of us. Like Lauretta was
Oh,
saying,
all
like
of
it was
us.
Lauretta the teacher, right? Like we get that identity.
Yeah.
I will say it's why years ago I stopped asking people what do they do when I'm at parties,
I
right?
never
So
do.
instead of, because what's what everybody asks you, right? You meet people and the first thing they say is, "What do you do?" So I
Uh-huh.
changed it to, "What do you love to do?"
Yeah.
No, that's a great question. I need to start doing that. I need to
Right?
Yeah.
Just
I
Yeah.
adding,
never ask.
right?
I
But
never ask.
when you change it to what do you love to do, it just changes the mentality. Like people talk about their hobbies. They talk about things they really love and enjoy as opposed to work. And maybe work is the thing that they love and enjoy at the moment,
Right.
but it's not always.
Mm-mm. I was just having that conversation with somebody just recently around how, and I know it stems from the fact that, you know, I've built a career in the world of career. And so I don't want to engage in career conversations like on my bike or at a party or whatever. And so I'm just like, some people will be like, "Hey, do you know what that person over there does?" And I was like, "No, because I do not ask that question, because they are like going to reciprocate it. And then I'm going to be in this career conversation that I
Yeah.
don't want to be in with a glass of wine in my hand, you know, and telling somebody that."
So I will say I started asking it because years ago I had a friend who was a tax lawyer. And they said, you know, if you ever want to get a whole room of people to just get silent and like awkward, is when people say, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" And you say, "I'm a tax lawyer." Because everyone's like, "Oh," right? Like nobody's excited to talk to the tax lawyer, right?
Yeah.
So
No,
when she said, she goes, "I really wish people would stop asking me what I
I
do."
love it.
And I
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, we can
It's
change that."
the
So,
worst conversation starter.
well, but again, it's the most common one, right?
It's
Yeah.
the most common
And
because
people will
everybody just
talk
goes
about
with
it,
it.
right? But all right, so Loretta, now you've changed. You have your new job. How long are you in it now? It's a
Gosh, I think
year,
now the 23rd, so almost
almost,
6 months. What's today? Tomorrow. Tomorrow, 6 months.
right? So you
Wow.
got 6 months out, and are you
Awesome.
feeling like you're finding your identity now?
Definitely. I mean, it's just things like, like I look at my dad again, like he doesn't want to retire because he likes structure, but also he's a graphic designer. He loves art, but I see him just doing all these hobbies. And I think to your point of he's 68 and my friends like think he was like a teen dad, and I'm like, no, he wasn't. But and that's something that like I'm able to find again is like I'm able to do, my hobbies. I love to doing like community theater and I've started to look into that a bit more. But before diving into that, I just feel a lightness that I have not felt in a while. And it says a
Mm,
lot, I'm always someone that, especially when like my loved ones, like my younger brother, who typical younger brother, like doesn't compliment his older sisters unless like, and when he does, it's like the room stops, the world stops spinning. You're like, because you genuinely mean that. And I just remember it was one morning and my brother was going to work and I'm, in the kitchen and he just looks at me and goes, "Wow, your skin's glowing." And I'm like, "What?"
Hmm,
Like,
so
it's
nice.
amazing what stress does to us,
yeah,
right? Right?
and he just goes, "And your eyes look really bright." And
Oh,
he's like in his late 20s, like we're 6 years apart. He was in high school and I was teaching high school, if that gives you any idea. And I was kind of taken aback, but that's really what I feel. These last 6 months, I've just been able to, I feel lighter. I mean, yes, like physically, like my skin is cleared up. I definitely don't feel as inflamed and just stressed out as I was all the time, but I also just feel a sense of like creativity I haven't felt in a while, which is so weird to say because when you're a teacher, that's like one of the number one traits is that we do have to be creative. We're making these lesson plans and we need all these creative ways to keep these students engaged. But yet I started to feel like my creativity meter was like at an all-time low. It was like
mhm.
the alert, on your dashboard when like your car is going to implode. Um, and right now I'm like, wait, I feel so much more creative than I ever have. And that's why like this past summer when I walked the Camino, Sure, I had like posted on TikTok, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just was showing up and I was like, you know what? Like, friends at home, they're going to want to, friends and family, they're going to see us walking the Camino. So I'm going to make TikToks of it every single day and just
Cool.
like download the videos and send it to people. And then as I started doing that, it was my best friend, Sarah, that was like, I think you should like start talking about leaving teaching and just like what it's done for your life and how you, because it's true. I still love education. I support education. It's just for me, this is what it's done in my life to leave, but also like calling out education that we need to be supporting our teachers and listening to them. That's the number one, just listen to them. And that's when I just started posting consistently and then started gaining followers. And, I have big goals and dreams when it comes to TikTok, but I'm more of just, and, podcasts and just social media, but I'm more just like enjoying it. I'm having fun with it, which is what I did with teaching when I first started teaching. I just was having fun with it and enjoying it. And when that started to fade, again, that's when I knew it was time to leave. So I feel a sense of creativity. I also feel like I'm challenging myself. I mean, leaving teaching in this new job, I'm working very much in like business development. It's so new. Everything is so new. And when I start, because I'm my own worst critic, I got like the oldest daughter syndrome. We're like type A, we need everything organized, and we like no one else is beating us down, but we'll do a really good job of doing it ourselves. But trying to also give myself grace and remind myself of like you just started a whole new career after 11 years. You walked away from something you knew for 11 years, so I'm not going to learn this overnight. And I have to remind myself, like my first year of teaching, like I made mistakes. I probably cried every day. Every first year teacher knows the struggle, but I did it and I got through it and I did another 10 years of it. And that's what I just keep telling myself is that I just need to take it one day at a time and I'm not going to learn everything overnight. But I definitely am not beating myself down as much as I was when I was teaching. When I was teaching, there's really no room for error. There's no room for you as a teacher to learn. It's pretty much the expectation is you need to know everything, like your classroom procedures, your content, who, what, when, where. Where in this environment, it's I'm being pushed and I'm being challenged, but like I still have headspace for myself. I'm able to log off at 5 p.m. and I have the energy to go walk my dog, hang out with friends, get involved in something. Because when I was teaching, I just, once 5 o'clock hit during the week, I'm just trying to decompress. And my dog is probably the only person I want to be around because she doesn't talk back.
Yep.
She doesn't ask me questions. She just wants me to throw a ball.
This is so great, Lauretta. I mean, feel like we could talk forever, but
Yeah.
unfortunately our podcast doesn't go on forever. But, if you had to give that like one piece of advice to people who are like stuck in that same place, right? They're stuck in that job that is just exhausting them and draining them. What would be your like piece of advice for everybody?
I would definitely say you have to do the scary thing.
Yep.
You have to do the scary thing. The idea of leaving teaching was terrifying to me and restarting. And, I'd moved out of my hometown and that's scary, but leaving, especially again to that identity piece and teaching is you put your heart and your soul into teaching. And there's other jobs I know that you do that, but with teaching, you watch kids grow up, you watch their light bulb moments, you sit with them through the ugliest of times, and I've had so many tough phone calls and conversations with students, and you think about them at night. Most workplaces, you don't think about your coworkers at night. You think about your students and hope they're safe and feel loved. So the idea of leaving was terrifying, but I knew that if it was scaring me, it was the right thing to do, and just to lean into that and to not give up. It takes a while to find that right job if you're wanting to leave teaching. But it's also okay if you want to stay. I think that's also why something I want to emphasize that although I left and I walked away, it's okay if you don't want to and you want to give it more time. But if you're also wanting to leave and it does terrify you, I can promise you the students will be okay because they move on and they grow and you deserve to also move on and you also deserve to grow.
I love it.
Beautiful.
Christine, do you want to jump into our
Yeah.
questions today?
Absolutely. Okay, Lauretta, we always wrap things up with a few fun sort of get to know Lauretta. I mean, we've gotten pretty personal with you here, but few more questions
Yeah.
to really get to know how you operate out there. So I'm going to start with, what color brings you the most joy?
Blue.
Blue. Do you have a specific shade of blue?
A lighter blue, like I'm looking at it right now. It's when like it's between a light blue and like a baby sky blue,
Mm.
rich blue, like really the color of the sky when like the sun is shining. That's my favorite, whether you're at the beach or you're in the mountains. Those are my two favorite things.
Love it.
But just that when it's really bright, like the middle of the day blue sky.
Beautiful. Love it. What do you value most in others?
I definitely value compassion in
Mhm.
others. I think that's something, I struggled with a lot in high school when I was, experiencing bully, was just like compassion from others
Mhm.
as a whole. But the ones that did show me compassion, I mean, they showed it like tenfold. And that's something I really value in friendships, is that, yes, we're able to have fun and laugh and joke. But that when like we're going through it and we are just going through the mud, that we're still able to show up and just show like the deepest, most loving compassion towards each other. And I think our world in general, we need so much compassion in our world. I can't even begin to explain.
I know. I hear you. I hear you. Do you have any a book recommendation that has either inspired you or
Yeah, I
what's that?
had the book out and then I put it away, but I've read this book 4 times back, front to back.
Whoa.
And it was originally a reading assignment in school that I was not happy about. But then I read the book and I was like, oh, snap. It is Tuesdays with Maury. So that
Oh,
is
great book.
my favorite. It's just, I look at the book and I still have the original copy from when I was in high school, and has all, like, my handwriting has transformed drastically. But it's all my little notes, my annotations, and just kind of, it's cool to see my annotations in the different stages of life in which I've read it. And I always recommend, if you have like a favorite book, to just like make annotations and maybe read it again in another few years. But
Love
Tuesdays
it.
with Maury is just like the most, I think, beautiful book when it comes to just living life to the fullest and not being afraid to make the changes, because again, we're only given one life, and tomorrow is not promised. And that's something I've really had to kind of like hone in on, is that, life is short. And I've watched, people in my life, my dad, my grandmother, my best friends, like really grab life and just like make the world their stage. And that's something that I really take away from Tuesdays with Maury. And also he's just his, through his suffering, like has like the deepest faith, and just still, as this man is like actively dying in the book, right? It's not giving away too much, that he just like has these like profound life lessons. But his biggest thing is like, don't wait until it's to the point where you can't put these lessons into action. But I just think it's a beautiful book. Everyone should read it. So
I love
It's
it.
funny you mention it. My parents just read it. And as I said, they're in their 80s, right? And my mom called me last week sobbing
it's
because
so
she
good.
had, right, finished it. She was like, wow. She's like, it was such a great book, but whew, very emotional. But if you've
Yeah.
never read it, go read it. It's
Yes, it is heavy, but
fantastic
it
book.
is just,
Yeah.
it's worth it.
It's heavy and light at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Or not light.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, empowering. I agree. It's a fantastic read.
I don't think I've read that book. There's so many books wish I could have recommended to my mother as I look back, but that's one I haven't. I do know of it, but I haven't read it. I'll have to put that on my list. Amazing. I'm just going to end there because I think that was a beautiful place to just kind of bring this to a close. Lauretta, you've been a fabulous gift. I love your story. And TikTok has delivered us yet another fabulous guest.
No, I'm so grateful. This has been, you all have been a gift, and I've loved listening to
Aw.
your podcast, and I've started to recommend it to people, especially my friends that are kind of also in that what's the next stage in life? Or at 34, I always ask, what do I want to be when I grow up?
Mm-hmm. And you can keep being things,
Yeah.
and that's really what Colleen and I are trying to get the message out to planet Earth is you don't have to just be one thing. You can be as many things as you want.
Absolutely.
You can have as many second, third, fourth act careers and just keep, doing what brings you joy. So thank you for sharing your story, Lauretta. It's very inspiring. And I have friends that have done the Camino, and I have to admit, it's never been something that I've kind of like locked or honed into, but I don't know. I've had an interesting year in my life, and that now I'm kind of thinking that the Camino might be something that goes on. I don't call it a bucket list. I call it an adventure list.
I love that.
Yeah.
I might steal that name.
Okay, I will share it with you.
That's awesome. I think everyone should do a Camino just once in their life.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna have to look into it. I'm no longer what I call married to Vancouver. I had a consulting job that kept me in the city for chunks of time through the year, and I sunsetted that consulting gig earlier this year. So I'm no longer truly married to the city. So you just never know. I might start a Camino TikTok as well. Anyways, thank you again for just being our guest, coming back for a lovely part 2. And if our listeners would like to connect with you, where can they find you in the ether of social media?
Yeah, so I am on TikTok, and I should have my handle memorized, but that I do not, just so I can.
Okay, we'll link it.
I was going to say,
I know I have it because.
Okay, perfect. I just was saying I have all this headspace, and yet I can't remember.
No problem. No problem. We'll make sure that it's linked in our show notes as we do every week. And of course, you can follow Embrace the Squiggle on Instagram and TikTok. And we love seeing all your reviews. So please keep them coming on Apple, Spotify. Spotify, you can comment now. So that's a cool new feature. So please let us know your thoughts. I know I have a friend that she texts me every time she listens to an episode to tell me how fabulous it is. And I'm like, could you please review us? I love the text, but it's not helpful. So please, share your thoughts on Apple, Spotify, or whichever platform you're listening to us, which I do know there are many. So this week's Embrace the Squiggle podcast has been brought to you by myself, Christine Thody, coaching and consulting, offering life, career, leadership, and executive coaching, all rooted in authenticity. So make sure to follow, subscribe, and share this episode with someone else who might want to walk the Camino, or who might be in the middle of their own squiggly journey. And if no one's told you today, we are all exactly where we need to be. So thank you again, Lauretta. And of course, thank you, Colleen, for the wonderful conversation and inspiring journey that you have shared with us. So take good care.
Thanks, everyone.
Is it time for you to add a little squiggle to your career? Join us every week to hear from another guest talk about how they embrace the squiggle.
Subscribe now and find your inspiration.